Hello, and welcome to the webinar to talk about St George's School of Medicine. My name is Andrew Birchett, and I'm the manager for the Middle East and North Africa for St George's University. Over the course of this presentation, I'm going to introduce you to us, our two different sites in Newcastle and Grenada, and how you can really look at the true pathway to becoming a doctor in the US, UK, and even potentially Canada as well. Now, as you can see from the first slide, this is our campus now. It is a heck of a space. I mean, if you look at it, I don't know about you guys, but I've never seen a university campus with a beach before. This is a $500 million campus with over 65 buildings, all state-of-the-art facilities, designed purely to give you the best experience possible, so that at the point in all your studies, you will be engaging with the top level equipment, top level professionals, and everything you can possibly imagine that you would need to become a doctor. Now, as I mentioned the beach before, I always think it's quite interesting that we actually have our own scuba school. So if you're studying on our Grenadian campus, you can actually learn to scuba dive and you have time down. Because I mean, looking to train as a doctor is an incredibly hard and dedicated thing to do. And you really need that sort of that downtime, that breathing space to allow you to sort of let everything sink in, basically. Now, I mentioned at the top that we are a genuine provider into how and becoming a doctor. We are actually the #1 provider of first-year US resident positions in the last 10 years combined. This year alone, we've actually had a record-breaking year. We've placed at the moment, so it's still a counting number, we've placed 1,090 doctors into the US this year alone. Now, that in itself, and that's, we're looking at international students as well, that is a huge figure. It actually equals that we've got 1 in 100 doctors in the US are St. George's graduates. And this is your opportunity to become one. As I say, just to make sure you've got that point, we are the #1. This is something, and this is for you guys, this is for international students. We're all quite aware of the fact that, becoming a doctor and looking to train in the US, UK, or even further field into Canada is a difficult thing to do. It's, you're looking at really high level attainment, your ability to get close to 99 percentile grades, whole host of things. And throughout this presentation and through the questions afterwards, because there will be a questions and answer session afterwards, I will be able to explain to you how you can go on from being not just a good or a great student to being a fantastic doctor. And this really backs that up. I mean, we really put a lot of time and work into supporting you guys. Now, I imagine to get to this point, to consider what it's like to look to train and become a doctor, you've done your research. You're aware of all the steps that are involved and how in the different education systems you would look to become a doctor, and the time taken as well. I mean, what we will be able to offer, and a part of the offer I'll talk to you about, is that depending on your high school system, you can become a doctor in anything between 4 and 7 years. Now, if you look at this alone, with many of the other education systems, at the very longest, you're going to look to be doing a MBBS, a BSc, or another program. Now, the MBBS route will leave you with a bachelor's at the end of your first part of your study. You'll then look to get your internship and then your residency. Now, interestingly, that bit when you're looking to get your internship and your residency, it can be very difficult. Students have traditionally found it quite hard to get their postgraduate placements. However, our students, we have a Department of Educational Support that will actually put you into your placement, work with you throughout your studies, and make sure that you get your placement, to the point that we actually have a 94% of our students are going into placement. I'm not sure exactly the exact numbers across the globe of the equivalents, but it is much lower and much more difficult than that. I mentioned as well that we have a site in Newcastle and Grenada. The Grenada one is obviously the scuba diving school that I showed you before. And this will allow pathways into the US, UK, and Canada. We also have our Newcastle site. Now, we partner there with Northumbria University, and you'll be able to, so therefore you've got options available to you. And as I'll explain when we come to the course structure, you're not limited by your choices to your pathways of how to become a doctor from your initial choice. So some people may choose to start in Newcastle. Then once they've spent their year in Grenada, will look to then go into the US rather than staying into the UK, and vice versa. So at no point are you truly limited by your options. And this is where we come to it. So now, depending upon your school system, and again, we can address that in the question and answer session after the presentation, after the webinar, you may enter into any of these years. Now, if I give you an example, say students doing the CBSE, so the 10+2, who achieve a grade of 80% or higher, will join the program here. So you'll be eligible for a 5-year MD program where you will graduate as a medical doctor. So at this point, you are then going into your full-time medical practice work. So if you've also made, so let's say the IB, and IB scores are 32, A-levels would be 3 Bs. However, we must ensure that you've got your sciences. We will require biology and chemistry to ensure that you can get into these positions, and they've got to be your higher grades. You've got to show that you've got that inclination, that desire to become a doctor. So that's your high school routes. If you've already completed a bachelor, you can then be considered for a 4-year MD program. So this would be, and that bachelor can be in any appropriate science subject. So say if you've done a bachelor of biology, of chemistry, something that can be applied to a science bachelor, we'll then use your transcripts, look at what you've attained, and then map it to our 4-year MD program. So you can see from the flags below where you can possibly study. You will have the option to study in Grenada or in Newcastle. And at this point here, at the end of your 2nd year, you'll also gain your bachelor. So you are going to be going through the pathways, and you will gain your bachelor, and at the end you will gain your medical doctor program. At this point, you will take your US LME. That's your level 1. This is your test that allows you to go on to do your medical practice and your residencies and your circulations here in year 3 and 4, where you'll be working in hospitals in the US, UK, and potentially in year 4 in Canada. Now, what we're able to offer, as I mentioned before with the team, the Department of Educational Services, is that we are working already with 75 hospitals in the US, 25 in the UK, 5 hospital chains in Canada. So we've already got established relationships with there. So as we work along and you're considering your speciality, you're considering what you want to do and how you want to become a doctor and the point that you want to practice, this is where I work to, so that here it's not such a leap. Also, as you can imagine, preparing for USMLE, you can focus on your examinations. So we will always put in a phenomenal amount of student support. I mean, to give you an example, in our classroom sizes, we have classroom sizes where it's 8 students to 1 professor. You know, you're really going to get a hands-on version of education. There's, say, you know, you look in things like cadavers. There's 4 students per cadaver. You know, this is as real-world education as you can possibly imagine. It's not just bags and bags of theory, reading, and then going on to try and then apply that knowledge to a life situation or to a cadaver. We do what's called the integrated learning system. Now, that will mean that you'll do theory, practice. So everything you learn, you then get to apply into that situation, working with actual, patients as you go along. All points, you will be continually practicing and learning and practicing, which means that, as we have a phrase we use, that we take good students and make great doctors. This is how we look to do that. Now, as you can imagine, we are able to help you practice. We have students practicing in 50 different countries around the world and for our graduates. This is due to our accreditation with the World Federation of Medical Education. And this allows for, well, say, practice everywhere. We do quite a lot of work with things like Doctors Without Borders, where students can go and, and also once you've graduated as well, where you can go and practice medicine in different parts of the world. There can be short-term requirements, lots of different work you can do. So, this is very much a global opportunity for you. And there we go. So this shows, again, confirms the amount of support and the success that brings for you as a student. It's 91% is huge. I mean, I can't even conceive what that's like, of a beginning class and of 100 students, 91 of you guys will go on into the US postgraduate positions and then therefore into your residencies and off into the working world to begin your journey and finalize your journey as a medical doctor. Now, although this doesn't have the 2020 figures that I mentioned at the beginning, these will be added once we've finished our placements. But as you can see, we've got progressively larger as we've gone along, and which has allowed us to give you more and more support. So this is based on the 2018 figures. So if we add the numbers on top of what we've got, well, when those are produced, I can share them with you guys. This is quite interesting. So I spoke to you about the US MLA. We have a 96% pass rate. So if all the preparation that you do along your course you'll study, whether that's through the pre-medical and the pre-clinical years, and then onto the MD or just onto the MD alone, we will support you. So the point you take your test, your US MLE, you are prepared. This isn't, there'll be a point that all your testing up to that point will be similar and actually prepare you for the US MLE. So when you get to the point that you sit that exam, you're not going to be taken by surprise by anything. This is all this leads towards this final journey. Now, I've spoken at length about the DES, and I'll give you an example of how we're able to support our students. So in Grenada, we have 3,500 students. To match that, we have 3,000 members of staff. This will allow to make sure that you've got access, you've got all the support, and it's not even just from the get-go, it's not even from day one. This will be from the moment that you've accepted your place and you're coming to join us here at St. George's. We will place you into groups so you'll be able to talk to your peers, your friends, and just help build before you arrive. There's something which I will, as part of the application process, which to be honest, when I first saw it, astounded me. So I'll talk to you about that. Now, that support means that the attrition rate, which is, to use it in a sort of slightly different terms, would be the dropout rate. So if we talk about that block of 100, like I did before with the pass rates and the success rates, of those 100 people that may start the program, 6.1 don't make it now. Obviously, you can't have 0.1 of a person. It's not always just round figures. However, if you look at it like that, that's really 6 people out of 100 that begin. Studying to become a doctor is an incredibly hard thing. And at the point you're looking at it, you're going to be 100% committed, 100%. And we will support you all the way through. We'll make sure we give you every tool, every opportunity to succeed. We're not here to look to kind of chastise people in any way. We want you to be a success, and we will do that. And with your input and your support, we will make you so. Here we go. See, there we go. I kind of jumped ahead of the slide. So these are staff numbers, which makes the staff faculty to student ratio 8.1. I've mentioned that a couple of times, so I won't sort of labour onto that. Now, the application process. We have our own application process, our own forms. Now, I will be able to support you with that whilst we're working here in the Middle East. I'm based in Dubai, so I can reach out to anyone in the region. You can always come across at any point, take time, come grab a coffee, talk to yourselves, your parents, anyone that you want to speak to about, because it is it's a real commitment, and I and the team, we all appreciate the fact that you've got to really jump into something and you need that support with you. And that's not just me, that's your family support, that's everyone around. So you can, as you will have probably prepared by now, there is a fairly regimented approach to applications. Now, the interview is quite interesting. We structure it differently. It isn't like a panel interview. You're not going to be asked any technical questions. You're not going to be asked, about your knowledge as a doctor. It's going to be shaped more around your personal statement. Your personal statement is very, very important in this application, because what that shows us is your motivation, your desire, your drive to become a doctor, and what that means to you, because it is a very personal journey. It is, so I've mentioned a lot about the commitment and how to move forward. It is a very, very personal and hardworking journey, and this is your chance to express that. You will always, where we can, be interviewed by an alum from the same country that you're coming from. So as part of that interview, you can also have a conversation. You can talk about what their experience was like, how they made that jump, how they were supported along the way by us to ensure that everything that that they did was positive. We're always looking to go forward. Once you've got your admissions decision and you accept the offer and submit the deposit, now this was a bit I mentioned before, which I just think is stunning. We will fly you and a parent or guardian to the campus you're choosing. So we will fly you to Grenada for a few days, come and see this campus, come and see the sites, or to the UK. So depending on the pathway you've chosen, we will fly you there, we'll show you around, we'll introduce you to people, we'll help you take that step, because, I mean, to be honest with you, I'd love to just go to Grenada anyway. It's just stunning. But we are there to support you and to make sure that you're there. And then you'll start studying medicine. Now, I mentioned the start dates. We've guaranteed that we will have start dates this September and August. They're guaranteed. No matter what happens in the current situation, you will be able to start your education in these 2 dates. Now, I've mentioned some of the other entry criteria before when I spoke about the shape of the programme. There is a requirement for an English language. I'll use the IELTS as it seems to be the kind of the more commonly used qualification. We require a score of 7 in each bandwidth with a minimum of 6.5 in the writing. Now, the writing is quite an interesting part of the test, really. This is something where I often use the phrase with students where you use a paragraph perfect. So rather than this feeling the need to write a lot of information, take a big breath, sit down and think, right, I want to make sure what I write is grammatically correct, the spelling is correct, and everything is perfect. It doesn't, the score isn't based against the amount of information you write. It's the quality of the information that you write. We will also accept TOEFL, Pearson's. We're just launching our English language requirements. So if you have a test that's not an IELTS, talk to me and we'll be able to look at how we can match that against. There is, however, one thing. You will require an IELTS to study in the UK. That has to be a UK VI IELTS due to the visa requirements to enter the UK. And to come into Grenada, there is no visa. You get a visa on entry, there's no cost. Once you arrive, you say, you just come to border controls to be studying, and you come, off you go, and you begin your study. And that's me. Seems like a black screen is a strange place to finish, so I'll go back there. So what we're going to do now, after you've watched this recording, I'm here at the event, ready to answer your questions, ready to help in any way, and share my contact details with you. Also, my colleague Sebastian Courage, who's the Director for Middle East and North Africa, is joined as part of the event, and I'll also share his details. Excellent. Well, I look forward to hearing from you guys.